Hello everyone, welcome to the training on critical incident report form. My name is Troy and I'll be walking you through this tutorial. So, to begin, go to TRE's main site, tre.org. Then in your right hand corner, you'll see a critical incident report form. Go ahead and click on that. After that, you'll see this little window appear. So, a critical incident report is anything relating to mistreatment, abuse, neglect, or exploitation, injury or onus to the person receiving services or client, depending on what language you use, criminal activity, damage to consumers' property, or theft. So that's if a person that you're serving has some of their personal property is damaged or their personal property is stolen. Medication mismanagement, unsafe housing or displacement, death, or other high-risk issues. So it'll start with the waiver. What waiver is this individual on? We're going to do this for a person called John Smith, and he's on the EBD waiver. So, John Smith, enter his date of birth. We're going to say he was born on January 1st, 1940. Date and time of incident, please use military time. Now, if you're not familiar with military time, we're going to say that this incident happened on Thanksgiving at roughly 5 o'clock. So instead of putting 5 p.m., put 1700. Date case manager notified. So this form will not immediately notify the case manager for John Smith. Say John Smith's case manager was Jane Doe. Jane Doe would not get notified until after this incident form was processed by the critical incident team. So if you haven't, please make sure you notify the case manager immediately after this, and you can just shoot them a quick email saying, hey, I filled out the critical incident report form for John Smith. Just wanted to let you know you should be expecting that in the next day or so. So we're going to say date notified. We're going to say that we notified Jane on Thanksgiving, so 11/26/2020. Has this critical incident been substantiated? What that means is, can you verify that it happened? Is there some way for you to guarantee or to say with some level of certainty that this event happened? Most of the time, the answer to this will be yes, from my experience. But if you're hearing it from third or fourth hand account, may want to follow up and just make sure that what you're hearing is what happened from the individual. So the name of the person reporting the incident, that would be you. So for me, I'd fill out Troy Cook, and I'd fill out my email. So this one, you want your email or your phone number. The location of the incident. We're going to say that this happened at John's home, but we could say it happened in the community, at a hospice, at a hospital, alternative care facility, or you can even put other if there is an option that you don't see here that you would want to fill out. So address of the incident, we're going to say John lives at 123 Main Street, Colorado Springs, CO 80909. What happened? It was an injury or illness related incident. Now, as you see, when I clicked on this, there was a new box that appeared right below it. Clicking on each of these different answers actually means that different questions will appear beneath them. So, for injury or illness, we'll see, okay, description of the incident. What happened? So we're going to say that I typed out, as much detail as I could about how John was enjoying Thanksgiving dinner. His caregiver was helping him prepare it, and then he sat down to eat and realized he forgot the gravy. So John got up and tried to get some of the gravy from off the stove. The caregiver was working on something else. She had went out to do laundry. Or he had went out to do laundry, and they left the gravy on the stove, and John tried to grab it but was stumbling in the process, and the gravy fell onto John's hand, and John's hand got burned, and he needed to be taken to the hospital. We're going to say that I wrote that out there, and I'm just going to for the brief example, say John Smith burned his hand. But make sure that you include as much detail as possible. So the story that I just told would have been a great example. If you have more information than that, then you can say John went to the hospital because the caregiver thought he might have second-degree burns. He was taken to the hospital and he was admitted because he had second-degree burns, and they were going to treat him overnight for those second-degree burns. So the name of hospital where John was admitted, we're going to say John was admitted to Memorial Central. Could this have been prevented? So this question is kind of tricky sometimes because hypothetically, most things could have been prevented had some miracle or act of some divine being happen. But for an incident like this, the caregiver could have taken the gravy off the stove and brought it to the table with John. John could have asked the caregiver for help to get the gravy. There were a couple of things that could have happened to make sure that this didn't end with John being in the hospital with second-degree burns from gravy. So we would say yes. How could this incident have been prevented? Again, list out the options. John could have asked for some help. A caregiver could have noticed that the gravy was still on the stove and that the stove was still on with the gravy on it, etc., etc., etc. So we're going to just say caregiver could have taken gravy to John at the table. Supervisor follow-up or secondary review. What this is talking about is what else needs to be done. What other information needs to happen or needs to be gathered, or what needs to happen next. So maybe John is going to need additional care because he burned his hand and can't do X, Y, or Z task anymore. Maybe he can't necessarily lift things as much as he used to, and so he's going to need a little bit more help with housework. Or maybe we just need to follow up with John and see how he's doing in the hospital. Whatever it is, we're going to say we're going to follow up with John in the hospital. This is what needs to be done next. We're going to say, was the person receiving services healthy? What was the person receiving services health status prior to this critical incident? So we're going to say that John's health was healthy. John was in pretty good shape for being 80 years old, and so almost 81. So we're going to say, yeah, he was in pretty good shape. Provider type. So this is what kind of an agency do you work for? Is it a case management agency? Is it other agency that's not listed here? Is it a service provider? ... I'm going to say it's a service provider, and I'm going to make one up and say I have my own health home care business and say Troy's Home Care. So then I would click submit, and this form would then go to the critical incident team. As I said earlier, it will not go to the case manager immediately. It will be processed by the critical incident team. It will then be sent on to the case manager. So if you haven't, by the time after you hit submit, please just go ahead and email the case manager quick. Hey, filled out a critical incident form. You should be getting the details in the next 24, 48 hours. Usually it's 24 hours, but if it's on the weekend, it might be a little bit longer than that since there's not going to be a lot of people working. So I would then click submit. And that's it. If you need to fill out the form again, so let's say you had a critical incident involving multiple people, you could then refresh it and the page would automatically bring up a new form for you to go through and fill out. If you have any questions, just give me a holler, let me know. My email is tcooke@tre.org. I'll be able to help you answer any of the questions involving this form or any of the backend stuff as to who it goes to or anything like that. Again, the email is tcooke@tre.org. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great day.